Okay, so Drugs Inc. Hollywood High. This actually came out a few weeks ago, so I'm a little bit late here, but had them stacked up in the DVR. Um, so wow, there was a lot of good stuff in this one. Interesting stuff. They interviewed or followed around a homeless veteran, Vietnam veteran by the name of John, who, let's see here, he was essentially panhandling or begging for money on the Hollywood streets to support his crack addiction. Now, I have a question for you, especially people out there who give money to the homeless. Would you be angry if you gave a few dollars to a homeless person asking for money and then found out they bought crack or some other addictive drug with it? I mean, I assume you would, right? You don't want to support someone's drug habit, especially if it's something like crack or meth or heroin or whatever. But how do you decipher? How do you decipher? The guy's got a Vietnam vet sign. He is a Vietnam vet. He's got his sweet dog there with him. How do you? He's got the whole setup uh, to uh, to facilitate or rather to create an ideal situation to get money. So how do you figure it out? How do you go up to him and say, so what are you going to use this money for? And he's going to say, oh well, for food to go to the grocery store. But he actually he panhandled at the Hollywood Bowl, which when they have a show, obviously thousands of people go walking by him, and he made $150 in a couple of hours, which is pretty amazing. Um, but uh, he's just going to turn around and go buy some crack with it, which is a wow. It's a lot of money to go to drugs, but it's just I mean, doesn't it make you? It makes me feel like I don't want to give any money, which I usually don't, to a homeless person, because you just never know what they're going to use with it. You never know unless you go with them to the store, to the restaurant to buy them food or buy them something that they claim they're going to buy. Uh, the other person that they featured was quote Doc Hollywood, Nathan Kimmerly, which was I guess a kind of a big story in uh, in the news a couple years ago because he was busted selling Adderall prescriptions to a lot of celebrities and other Hollywood type people for about $150 a prescription and selling, according to the show, 20, 30 prescriptions a day. So essentially pulling in lots and lots and lots of money. And this is the thing that amazes me. He gets pulled into it so much that he's a lot of celebrities are giving him free passes to events, so he's rubbing elbows with a lot of celebrities, big time celebrities, and he somehow or starts doing drugs himself, not just Adderall, but like meth and some other stuff that he's prescribing to people. Uh, so what is it about that? I mean, it's just almost guaranteed that if you're running in those circles, you're gonna eventually do some drugs. It doesn't have to be, right? But Kimberly fell prey to that, and he was eventually busted by the DEA. But amazingly, right, he's selling these drugs or these prescriptions, and he gets his license taken away. He was a psychiatrist, so he gets his license taken away, but he only gets 3 years probation. He doesn't go to jail, doesn't go to prison. But yet somebody sells a little bit of marijuana, a little bit of cocaine, a little bit of heroin, etc., and they can get years in prison. Does that does that work? Does that make any sense? And the last person who was featured in the beginning and the end of the show was pretty interesting. A 22-year-old named Dethy, which I believe is Dethy, Dethy, who just, according to the show, she's a sometimes actor and a model. I'm not quite sure what kind of model she is, but I guess some sort of model. And she does all types of drugs and essentially parties to try to make it in Hollywood. Yet she lives in her parents' or her mother's pool house or house in the back. Um, not quite sure how she makes money. I guess the odd acting or modeling gig. And one thing, she said a lot of stuff, but one thing that was interesting, she said, I don't believe in the future. She's 22. I have learned that if I worry about the future, that only brings anxiety. And if I worry about the past, I will only be depressed. So I've always lived in the present moment because no other reality exists right now. That's true forever. It's quite a statement from a 22-year-old who's doing lots and lots of drugs, basically kind of sounding hopeless and living in the moment. But just because you live in the moment doesn't mean that you have to do drugs, right? It doesn't mean that you have to seek out these incredibly unnatural highs. So, what do you think of the episode? It was power packed. Another good one from Drugs Inc.